Welcome to the Growing Tall Poppies podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nat Green, and I'm so excited to have you join me as we discuss what it means to navigate your way through post-traumatic growth and not just survive, but to thrive after trauma. Through our podcast, we will explore ways for you to create a life filled with greater purpose, self-awareness, and a deep inner peace. Through integrating the many years of knowledge and professional experience, as well as the wisdom of those who have experienced trauma firsthand, we will combine psychology, accelerated approaches, coaching, and personal experience to assist you to learn, to grow, and to thrive. I hope to empower you to create deeper awareness and understanding and stronger connections with yourself and with others, whilst also paving the way for those who have experienced trauma and adversity to reduce their suffering and become the very best versions of themselves in order to thrive. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I'm really pleased and grateful today to bring you our next guest on the Growing Tall Poppies podcast. It's my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome a lovely lady who I met recently through an event for podcasters. She has experienced and overcome considerable trauma and adversity throughout her life and has so kindly agreed to come and chat with us today about her experience. So let me start by introducing Kathy to you all. Kathy Rausch is a Mandala artist, author, and teacher. She studied art at UW-Madison, Wisconsin, and the Milwaukee School of Arts, and studied and painted the mandala with Mary Norris and Paul Husenstam. I probably did not pronounce that correctly. She discovered the power of mandalas whilst on her own healing journey and founded I Love Mandalas and has been teaching others to create theirs since 2013. So welcome, Kathy. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I am honored. I am honored. Thank you.
So I've given a very little introduction. Just wondering, I know I won't have done your life introduction justice. So can we start with you giving us a brief introduction in your own words of who you are and what you do in the world?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I am sometimes I laugh. I'm a cheesehead from Wisconsin, and I tend to have the accent that goes with it. However, my whole life, I have loved being creative in art from as long as I can remember. That was my go-to. I come from a large family in 8 children, and I also am a triplet, but my triplet sisters are identical. So I often felt alone in this huge, huge family. And art always, just being creative in any way was my escape. I was alone a lot. I remember walking through the flowers and drawing flowers and all as whatever I could do. And I always found a happy, happy place. And we had a lot of lovely times in my family, but there was a lot, like many people, there was a lot of trauma, it's a bit of a hard word, but it's true. In the year 2010, something happened with my family and I was basically disowned and I became suicidal. And it was not pretty. I have since been in recovery. But in that, right around that time, as I said, I just wanted to die. I did not know how to deal with all of these feelings. I had no way to deal with them, not knowing that I should just deal with them. But I wanted to escape. And at that time, I met a few women and they told me they were in an art show. They had paintings in a show. And I was like, oh, are you all artists? And they said, no. And I thought, well, how can that be? Whatever that is, I want to see it. So it was at the Young House, interestingly enough, but I had no idea what mandalas were. And so I didn't even understand what I was looking at, but the whole show was beautiful, painted, very different mandalas.
Hmm.
And I read their artist statements and what, each one experienced while they were painting their own personal mandala. And I said,
Wow.
whatever this is, I'm in. And Mary, the woman I mentioned, Mary Norris, she's was a very persistent woman. And I was very soon in my first 4-day mandala class,
Wow.
mandala workshop. And what I want to say after that, what I realized years later was what happened in those 4 days is it was like a pierce of light of the divine pierced into my heart.
Mm.
And I could feel again, I wasn't, the pain and the grief parted for a while. And from then on, I have been painting and drawing and teaching. And I wrote a book about it also. It's become my thing.
So tell
Yes,
me then, like life wasn't great prior to that. You were in a world of pain and trying to avoid those feelings.
right.
So just seeing you as we were talking then light up as you said that. So tell me a bit about, as best as you can describe it, what you felt. You said it was like the divine coming into your heart. Tell me a bit more about that.
Oh, that's a good question. I guess how I can describe it, how I remember it very vividly is first of all, I was surrounded by women who were all painting together. Mary
Mhm.
had a studio in her basement, beautiful studio with about 8 people could be in there with their own place to paint. And like I said, I didn't know what a mandala was. I was even even at a moment of, oh, I grew up Catholic. I wonder if is there something wrong with this? But
Mm,
it very quickly went away, and I got really engaged in this process of the circle. Mandala means circle.
mhm.
And I immediately knew I want to paint this about my family. And it turned out as I painted it, I felt calm
Okay. Yep.
and I felt happy and I cried, but not desperate crying. I began to feel like myself again. And
Wow.
it was, I mean, I attribute it to saving my life. And yeah, does that make, does
Yeah,
that
it
answer the question?
does. As it describes it beautifully. So it sounds like it really allowed you to connect to those nice feelings that you'd hidden for so long, or you'd become so disconnected from,
Correct.
probably
Yes.
since you were a really young girl, to be honest.
May not as much. I also happen to be running a large tech company that
Oh
I'm also
gosh.
very technical and that so I had all these employees and I was just like buried in things that thoughts and feelings that
Hmm.
were not my own. But yeah, I mean, I had many times of feeling like that growing up when I was alone painting or I was sewing or I was
Hmm.
creating batiks or, so it wasn't that I never felt good in my childhood, but
No.
it was very stifling.
And it sounds like a lot of stuff was also going on around you within the organization. So you'd taken on other people's
Yes.
stuff. And
Yes.
you're obviously someone who feels deeply and is an empath, so takes on feelings and
Yeah.
thoughts and beliefs
Yeah.
from other people within yourself. So it sounds
Yeah.
like this was a way to bring you back to yourself and find an
Yeah.
escape to release stuff that was never yours to carry. Would that be right?
Yeah. And it's not even really an escape. It was like, it like parted all that. All of that was parted, and I felt me again. It was just such a beautiful thing.
And it's quite a while ago, but I can still see as we're talking that it lights you up and you connect to that still so deeply.
Yes.
How
Yes.
did you initially cope? So you did this workshop, you had this whole sense of things parting and suddenly feeling different. What were your immediate reactions then?
Oh, I was like, look at this. I even, oh, this is embarrassing. I even brought it into work. We had a lot of very talented artists from like Carnegie Mellon, just who were doing the artistic part of the websites mostly we were working on. And I'm like, look what I did. I'm just skipping around like a little kid. And I'm pretty sure they were like, oh my God, okay, that's great.
Oh dear.
I was and I had it in a show, and my two grown sons came to it, and they were so happy for me. And I just, it was wonderful. Now, it didn't all go away, of course.
Mm,
However, I mean, I did 6 more 4-day workshops with Mary
okay.
over the following year and a half. And we started, we became friends. And then I started drawing them. And it's today, I have hundreds of, I call mandala doodles, but some of them are quite beautiful.
So tell me what that led to for you, because I know that you've turned the experiences and the trauma into your passion and you pay it forward to others now. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. It was about, let's see. So I was taking classes at the spiritual center that I belonged to, and I would always start in the class and I would start with the dot, and then towards the end, I'd just have a mandala that I drew. And after a while, people started asking me, how did you do that? And within a month or so, I got this message as I was sleeping, like, teach people how to draw them. They
Mm.
can do that. It's much more accessible. And here are the steps for your class. And I, wrote them down. And lo and behold, I started
Oh.
teaching, and that was in 2013. And the first woman I asked, she had a spiritual center doing all kinds of Reiki and
Hmm.
cool stuff that I was actually kind of unfamiliar with. But the second I said the word mandala, she said, yes, whatever it is, yes. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's when I started to teach. And I haven't stopped. It definitely slowed down during COVID, but I've been
Mm.
all over the US and in Canada. I've taught over 1,000 people how to draw their own mandala. And it's just something that people have come to know me as the mandala lady. Although I will tell you, most people say mandala or mandala. Yeah, mandala is the correct way, which I was taught. It's a
Hmm.
Sanskrit word. And in Sanskrit, a 3-syllable word, the first syllable is always enunciated.
Oh, mandala. There you go.
The
Learned a lot
Yes.
today already. And
Yes.
I know that might be my Australian accent, and that might be how we tend to say it, but
Absolutely. And I'm not offended,
mandala,
but I do
it's
like to
very
tell
important.
people.
Yeah. So tell me then, because I know our listeners will be, everyone's seen mandalas, and I've always
Mhm.
been fascinated. I have a colouring in book, interestingly, that
Yes,
I
yes.
enjoy colouring in, and I was drawn to the mandala and thought, oh, I'll get that. And it's quite time consuming, but I always find it calming. So tell me a bit about mandala and what it means and what it's about.
Okay, so yeah, the definition, as I said, of it's a Sanskrit word and it means circle.
Hmm.
And the art it basically did originate from, as far as the word goes, from Eastern art religions. And it is so powerful because it's a circle, and circles are, now all the science is coming in about how this stuff has all been proven scientifically, but our brains are very familiar with circles, and
Hmm.
we engage with circles all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, we're looking into each other's circle eyes,
Yeah.
So then when you create a mandala, it's typically, and not always, but typically, in the way I teach it, is divided into equal sections. So it gets very basic geometry.
Hmm.
And so both sides of your brain fire up. And it's the same when you're coloring them.
Mm.
Both sides of your brain
Yeah.
fire up together, and you become a very centered, it produces neurons and things to be fired that gives us dopamine and all these wonderful
Mm.
feelings. It's just a very familiar thing to do. And the way I teach it is I have them start have people start with with a process that divides it in four and then six and then eight. And then I have them start all the same in the middle. And then as they go out, I say, okay, now I want you to think of your own symbols.
Okay.
And I always get pushback,
Oh,
um,
interesting.
some pushback. But it is inevitable. Everybody, I've had like maybe less than five people say, I can't do this. But they just all of a sudden the room becomes quiet and they've gone as long as 4 hours where I'm like, okay,
My
we
goodness.
gotta end now.
When you say you get pushback, what do you think that pushback is about?
Oh, good question. They don't trust that they could draw something, most of them.
Mm,
Of course, there are
yeah.
some artistic people who just go to town. But yeah, they're like, what? What do you mean a symbol? And I'm like,
Mm,
everyone knows what a symbol is. I kind of, I'm very lighthearted about it. And it does not have to be a sacred symbol or something religious or
yeah.
benevolent. It can be whatever you want it to be. And
Mm,
then and when people get stuck, I say, all right, let's start with the little circle. And so you draw it in one part of the mandala, like here.
hmm.
And then you draw seven more in the same place. And the circles are starting. And
Excellent.
pretty quickly, the pushback ends.
Mm,
And then after a while, I will break out little stencils that I have of birds and hearts and the Om symbol and things like that. But it's just amazing to watch. And at the end, they're all just so, 99% of them are just so delighted with what they've done. And have you heard of this book, Your Brain on Art?
no, only from when you mentioned it recently. I've
Yeah.
not
Oh,
seen it.
it's just amazing. It's full of proof, scientific proof. Two women from Google and Johns Hopkins
Hmm.
have done all kinds of research in the arts and how they use it for
PTSD. Yeah. Yeah.
PTSD. So it's what I'm so happy about is that it's now being scientifically proven that being
Mm,
an artist in any manner, expressing art in any way, or looking at art does that to your brain. It starts
mm.
to calm you down.
Yeah, really fascinating, isn't it? And as you said, it really engages both hemispheres, left brain and right
Right.
brain. So
Right.
the
Right.
overanalyzing and the overcritical part of us
Yes.
working with the other side and the creative part. So connecting together, they're communicating in ways that we tend not to when we're stuck in
Right.
trauma or hurt and pain. I
Yes.
love that so
Yes.
much.
And I can see, or if it's over Zoom, I can sense when it happens. Sometimes
Mm.
individually, sometimes I did a few workshops for a government agency here. When they hired me, I didn't know their name is Sandia. I was like,
Mhm.
sure, and it turns out to be a government agency of 16,000 scientists. And
Oh my
when I
goodness.
found that, I was like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And wow, they loved it. They had to cap it at 100 people, and I did it a few times.
Oh,
And, and it was men and women. It's not just for women by any means. So
sounds very powerful. And
yes,
and the fact that it's appealing to scientists and
yes,
getting more traction in that neuroscience and evidence
yeah.
base is, you were way ahead of your time, weren't you, by bringing
Well,
this in?
Carl Jung was the first one.
Yes.
Carl Jung he had a huge book. It's called the Red Book, and it's like this big, and it's all of the mandalas that he created. But he
Mm.
talks about his patients and how he just had them start with a circle. And it just helps people just to let everything else go and just become one with this circle and they make it their own.
And
It's
it,
it's so delightful.
oh, very powerful. And it must be
Yeah.
fabulous to see that every one of them is different, unique
Yes.
to
Yes.
that person. So there's no
Yes.
two mandalas that are the same.
No, there are no, and I have hundreds and hundreds of examples of my students' mandalas. I think there's There are some, I have a couple of websites, but yeah, every one of them is different. And I'll tell this story. I
Hmm.
started to do it. I did it for my daughter-in-law for her art class. She's a high school advanced art teacher, and so the art
Hmm.
they can do is just amazing. And so I went in and did it for her class, and she now teaches it every year and incorporates it with other art methods like painting or shading.
Hmm.
But when I was there, I'm looking around and just like always, I'm like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. Or, oh, I love your mushrooms. And she says, those aren't mushrooms, those are penises. And this was a teen. I was like, well, you know, you do you, basically. She was a senior in high school, but wow. Yeah, so I just never know. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. And to think that you're not restricted to having to do this in person, that you now teach this on Zoom.
Yes, which is, it's just amazing to do that. I wrote the book. That also was downloaded to me. Oh, I know a woman who is a professor at Harvard, a PhD in Harvard, two
Hmm.
degrees in Eastern religion and goddesses. And she endorsed my book
Oh,
because
wow.
she
Amazing.
said, I cannot tell people in real life vernacular what a mandala is because she will go to the extreme because has so much knowledge. And
Mm.
she's like, thank you for writing this book. So regular people like you, like me,
Hmm.
understand what it is and the power of it.
So tell me about your book. I know our listeners will be thinking, oh, there's a book about this. So how do we
Yes,
do
yes.
this?
It is called Activate Divine Creativity, the Life-Changing Magic of the Mandala. And during this process, it's 8 chapters, like there's 8 sections in a mandala. I decided I should hand draw a mandala for each chapter. So here's one.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
and so I drew them, and then I also have a workbook that goes with it that you can do for each mandala because each one has meaning. The first one is the seed is planted. The second one is and so it grows, expansion and creation, and it goes on in
Mm.
the from through our lifetimes. Self-actualization. Yeah.
So the book will help people be able to understand the role of the
Yes.
mandalas and how to create their own.
Yes. So at the end of each chapter, I have one step that you start with, and then at the end, by the end, you have your own little mandala that you've drawn.
Excellent.
I had a woman contact me and she said, I took your class a year ago and I thought you should know that I have 100 of my mandalas on display at the Westerville Library. You should go see them. So
What's
great.
that like for you knowing that you've written this book, you've produced it, created it, and it's out there in the world and you're getting that sort of feedback?
It's amazing. When that happens, I haven't sold a ton of them, but I've gotten a lot of really good reviews. It's just, oh my God, it's just like so affirming.
Mm.
And I feel honored to be able to help people like that. Another woman tracked me down on Facebook and sent me this long message and said, my name is her name, and I'm from India, and your book saved my life and my daughter's life as we're going through a very difficult divorce. I want to thank you.
Oh.
And I was just like, what?
Mm.
What? I mean, and I was showing my husband, and he says, if that's all that happens from your book, it's worth it.
Exactly. Oh, I got
And she's
goosebumps.
now an art therapist and has her own practice.
Mm.
And I wish she was closer. I'd love to visit her.
So very, very powerful. And what a
Yes.
gift that you experience that gift of being able to reconnect to yourself, heal,
Yes.
start that healing journey to heal from your
Mhm.
trauma. And now you are paying it forward. So I'll make sure we put a link to your book in the show notes and the
Yes.
other book was it the Your Brain on Art, because I know that there's a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
therapists and coaches that listen to the podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people that will listen to the podcast that are on their own healing journeys, but also work with clients.
Yes.
And
I've noticed that I've been listening to your podcast and it's just so wonderful.
oh, thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
when you look at how far you've come from where you were with everything you'd been through growing up and where you were and then your turning point, what do you feel have been some of your greatest challenges that you've now overcome?
Oh, well, believing in myself as a real artist,
Mm.
that has always, that's what, when I went to the Milwaukee School of the Arts, one of the first things what is he, the director of, said, you should never paint again.
Oh, really?
And I've heard that from quite a few other people. I had the opportunity last summer to go to Europe in Venice to the European Cultural Arts Academy and study for 2 weeks with artists from all over the world.
Amazing.
And there, I was not the only person who heard that from their dean
Mm.
of art or of their school or college. It can be a very cutthroat place to be. And that really, I mean, I was 18 when that happened. But it didn't stop me from painting.
Thank goodness.
Right.
Yeah. So when you look, do you think there's any specific qualities or personal attributes that you see as being key to moving from trauma into post-traumatic growth?
Oh boy. When you say attribute, do you mean,
Anything like within yourself as a person or that you see in other people that you've worked with throughout the mandala trainings? What do you notice any specific things in common?
yeah, I would say the biggest, what comes to mind is that they gave their self permission to do something that they didn't think they would like nor be successful at.
Mm.
I have heard that from so many that they've heard of Mandala and they're curious, but they didn't think they could really do it. And at the end, they're
Mm.
just blown away. Like, I did not think I was going to do this. So what I see is there's like a process. They start and they're like, okay, okay. And then they get a little bit engaged and then they're just gone. They're gone. It's them and their art.
Mm.
Yeah. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. So they gave themselves permission. And I know that you said before that one of the key things was that you have learnt to believe in yourself.
Yes. Yes. And if, in trauma, gosh, just allowing yourself to get out of it, even though like it's gonna, in my experience, it can follow you around like a cloud.
Of course.
However, if I get out, if I do this, I mean, I draw a lot of mandalas when I'm in the process of, doing something mentally difficult
Hmm.
or challenging or fun. And just allowing myself to do that. For a while, I was kind of hiding because I was drawing so many of it and didn't really want people to see what I was doing. But
Okay.
yeah, just give yourself permission, even it doesn't have to be artistic, but to get on a bike or go for a ride
Mm-hmm.
or go to the store and buy yourself some flowers or plant some flowers, even when it doesn't feel good, because it's
Yes.
not always going to feel good. And that's one of the biggest things I have learned is to not be so afraid of those feelings and to accept them. I mean, even now after this many years, I still, it's like, oh no, not this again. But here we go. And it's taken me a while to still be like, it's okay. I love you. All that stuff that I, for a long time, thought was just so silly to say, I love you, little
Hmm.
child. It's not. And Google meditation to love your young child. And yes, there are.
There are,
And I've
yes.
done them. Yeah.
And like you said, it's about giving yourself permission. And one of the
Yes.
big keys of that is to feel because we spend so much time avoiding those feelings because they're
Hmm.
painful, they're awful.
Hmm.
We don't want to stay
Yes.
stuck in that
Yes.
discomfort and that pain. But it sounds like you're able to use the mandalas to really help peel back the layers and allow
Mhm.
ourselves to feel. And you can do a little bit at a time by the sound of it. You don't have to do it all in one go. And you
Yep.
just allow yourself to do it, to feel, and give yourself permission to
Yeah.
create.
Yeah. To create, to just step out of it and to know that those feelings are not going to kill you. It's how you react to
Mm.
those feelings.
And when you're using mandalas, you can continue to be in charge and in control and allow yourself to sit with that and produce. And that creativity can allow things to be processed and released, I'm gathering.
Yeah. A funny story during the pandemic, I was miserable for, like many of us, and just so
Mm.
angry. And I heard a voice, and I won't say the swear but word, but I heard very loudly, draw a effing mandala. And I was like, what? And I started off, and then I got over that, and it turned into a really, beautiful little mandala that I drew.
Mm.
So yeah, it's hard. Life is hard. And for me
Yes.
too, also realizing I'm not the only one who's experienced bad stuff by any means.
No. And I think when we've experienced trauma or something really awful, we do feel isolated and alone. Well, one thing
Hmm.
that I also noticed that you said back in that very first workshop, you were there with other women.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be
Yeah.
women, but other women. So you
Right.
had a
Right.
community.
Community.
So community was really, really important. And it's what you
Yes.
continue to create in your workshops is that sense of not being alone.
Yeah. And there's a lot of these retreats I went to. I've had this idea one night to, there were all these big round tables, and I just happened to have paper with me and tape, and I created a it was a 6 foot round table, and I covered it with white and very meticulously. I stayed up all night, and
Oh,
I
wow.
started doodling a mandala. I started in the middle, and by the time they all got in, there was this big mandala for them all to color. And so I've done quite a few of those at retreats. I don't do them by hand anymore. I do use uh, the computer.
Yeah,
But
it'd be a bit easier.
yeah, it's just a way to community art is so powerful.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So you've talked about the journey you were on and then how, you were at absolute rock bottom, tried to kill yourself, and how this has helped save you.
Mhm.
How else has the experience of the mandalas, how has that transformed your perspective on life, on relationships, and your personal values?
Ooh, on life. What I realized, and it wasn't like an aha moment.
No.
Well, and also the process of writing this book, I'm not a writer, but I did it,
Mm-hmm.
is that life is hard, and it's hard for everyone. I am not alone. It's
Mm-hmm.
also beautiful and wonderful and fun. And to be able to balance that and understand that is so freeing.
Mm.
Still isn't easy, and I still fall into it, and I'm getting better and better at just accepting me as who I am. And what were the other questions?
Your how it's transformed your perspective on relationships as well. Because I know you had quite challenging interwoven relationships with siblings and being a
Yeah.
triplet and the challenges that that's brought. So, how has it
Uh,
transformed that perspective on relationships?
The biggest change for me is that I am okay. I don't need to rely on those relationships. I miss them. I miss them a lot. And that's okay too. That
Mm.
it's for whatever reason, karma, God's will, whatever. This is the life that I have.
Hmm.
And as I walk through relationships with my husband, which has not always been easy, and my sons, and getting through the feelings of being betrayed and sad and angry is part of the process. And I've heard so much about journaling. It doesn't always help you immediately. Let's just
No,
go
it
honest about
doesn't.
that. It's not like I journal. It's like, oh, and skip out of the. It's like, oh, well, I got that out. And then I like to draw a mandala, which it just makes me feel better. Yeah, it's releasing those chemicals. The neural pathways, making new neural pathways, and cortisone. And is that the right
Mm.
one? I am no scientist.
but you're doing a really good job of explaining it and blending the arts with the science. And I think you've
Yes.
shared a lot of powerful information today. So,
Yeah.
if you could share one thing with our listeners that would help them as they navigate their post trauma or adversity experiences and move into post traumatic growth, what would it be?
One message
You can have more
that
than one
your
if you
real,
like.
I believe that all of us have this core real essence that is joy, that is love, that is expansion. That I believe that that's the core
Hmm.
of who we are. And, I believe that because I felt it and I know it. I felt it often when I was growing up. I could feel it.
Yeah.
And it was when I started to babysit it, it just like blossomed. I was like, whoa. So that is never gone. I don't believe
Mm.
anything can take that away. It's just, it gets lost. And the more you can just, I can tap into that and breathe into it. And that I finally realized I've been meditating for a long time. And it took me a while to realize why it's so powerful. Because even for a few minutes or a few seconds sometimes,
Hmm.
I can feel that it's your true real self, the beauty
Yeah.
of who you are, the essence of who you are never goes away. It is not gone. It is not ruined.
Oh, I love that so much. Very powerful message that
Yeah.
even though it can feel like things have been taken away or we've
Yep.
lost, it's always there. And it's
Yep.
about working out how to tap back into that.
Yeah. Tapping back into it. And at first, just knowing it's there. Took me a
Mm.
long time to even realize that's what happened as I started to do art again. It's like it tapped into that. That like that light. I just saw it like pierced right into that little
Mm.
creative girl. Like, you're still there. You are still there. And
Mm.
I will tell you, it's made me into a pretty incredible grandmother because
Isn't that
we're constantly being creative. And I let them get dirty and I let them mess up the house to a degree. But
good?
it's, because I don't want them to ever have it be buried like I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as we move to wrapping this conversation up, where can our listeners find out more about you and find you online?
They can go to ilovemandalas.com. And
That's
that's
easy. That's good to
I
remember.
love, and it's Mandalas. That's why we say mandalas or mandalas. I
Yeah.
love mandalas.com. KathyRausch.com also will point to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll put that in the show notes with a link. And
Yeah.
yes, and
And
then
also
I'll
on
put it
Instagram, it's underscore love mandalas underscore. And on Facebook, it's just Kathy Rausch.
excellent. So I'll put all that
Yeah.
in there and they can get on and connect with you and look at your
Wow.
book and we can
Yes.
all explore this whole new world of mandalas.
Yeah, we should I would love to coordinate a workshop in Australia so that I'm not trying to get people from all over doing different time zones, but that would be lovely.
Oh, maybe we could get people
A
to
Zoom
reach
workshop.
out. Yep,
Yeah.
reach out and connect with us and we could look at getting a mandala workshop up online through Growing Tall
Yeah.
Poppies. That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh, that would be so great. I mean, look
Yes.
at the poppies. They're just Mother Nature's mandalas.
I love it.
And
I
just
love it.
like flowers, no flowers are the same. No two poppies
Mm.
are the same, but they're poppies. So mandalas are just like that. Snowflakes also.
Snowflakes, yes. So, one thing I like to always finish with my guests on is what do you think your younger self would think of everything you've done in your life
Mm.
now?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. I think she would be like, way to go. You did it. I
Mm.
knew you could do this when I was very 5. My best friend died as she was coming to my house. She was hit by a car and
Mm.
died. That kind of thing, it happened but it didn't take away, she would say, I'm so happy we connected again. I'm so happy I am a big part of this
Mm.
life you are. leading while you're trying to be an adult.
Wow, you just gave me absolute chills and goosebumps. That
Oh,
really
yay.
hit home.
It's
That
never gone. Your true essence is never gone, even if you have to fake it. It's not hard. Fake it till you make. It's not easy, but and I've learned that there's a wonderful website called thejoywithin.org.
Mhm.
And it's just a wonderful teacher that I found who really helped me through that. Just know it's always there. It is always there.
Beautiful. What a wonderful note to finish on. So, thank you so much for joining
Oh
us
my gosh, you're
today.
welcome.
It's been,
I'm just honored and so pleased to be doing this with you. And I love your podcast. And you have some really, really helpful, funny, beautiful people on your podcast. It's really great.
thank you. And you're one that we can add to the list. You've been an
Yay!
absolute delight.
I'm
Thank you so
excited.
much. And I look forward to
You're welcome.
talking with you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Thanks,
All
Kathy. Bye
right.
for now.
Thank
Thank you for joining me in this episode of Growing Tall Poppies. It is my deepest hope that today's episode may have inspired and empowered you to step fully into your post-traumatic growth so that you can have absolute clarity around who you are, what matters the most to you, and to assist you to release your negative emotions and regulate your nervous system so you can fully thrive. New episodes are published every Tuesday, and I hope you'll continue to join us as we explore both the strategies and the personal qualities required to fully live a life of post-traumatic growth and to thrive. So if it feels aligned to you and really resonates, then I invite you to hit subscribe, and it would mean the world to us if you could share this episode with others who you feel may benefit too. You may also find me on Instagram at Growing Tall Poppies and Facebook, Dr. Natalie Green. Remember, every moment is an opportunity to look for the lessons and to learn and increase your ability to live the life you desire and deserve. So for now, stay connected, stay inspired, stand tall like the tall poppy you are, and keep shining your light brightly in the world. Bye for now.